Small Operations Podcast, Episode 2. It begins. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Small Operations Podcast. This is episode number 2. I'm your host, Field Plan, and this is actually going to be sort of the first episode where we follow the format that I'm intending, which is featuring user music and tips and tricks and all that good stuff. So the first one was just kind of me rambling. Apologies for that, but I kind of wanted to let everybody know what it was that we were going to be doing on this show, and I was pretty excited. Wanted to kind of get in there and share. So welcome. Hope you guys will enjoy this. One of the main reasons why I'm doing the show is, maybe you're like me. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and during the day when I'm at work, I wish that I could be doing music. I wish that I could be, listening to things that somehow related to the teenage engineering products that I kind of nerd out about. And I figured, it would be really cool if I could do a podcast, do a show where it would be more or less centered around TE stuff, people that are making music with TE stuff, and maybe get inspired, maybe inspire other people, just kind of form or at least augment the community that's already going on right now. I'm a big fan and a follower, even though I don't do a whole lot of posting. I really enjoy reading, sometimes interacting, but mostly reading and just kind of learning from stuff on the OP forums. So I really want to give a huge shout out to the OP forums. That was one of the major inspirations for me wanting to do this, aside from other podcasts unrelated to teenage engineering or electronic music that I listen to. So shout out to Dalai, Andrew Burke, Lymtronics, Yoof, Dimitri, and foxxyz for being the moderators and for setting up that OP forums for us so that we can enjoy that. Really, really great. If you guys aren't a part of that already, which I don't know, it'd be weird. I'm assuming a lot of you listening are coming from that community. Welcome. But if you're not already, you should look into it. Just do a Google search. You'll find that it'll come up relatively easily. So today's podcast is going to feature right off the bat music from several different artists that I've been kind of vibing on over the last few months or so. We're going to hear from Sun Wu. We're going to hear from Ëlectrafa, some Missing Reels. We're going to hear from Xtfr, which is Xtfr, Xtfr. And we're going to hear from Echo Opera. The music you're hearing right now, and that'll be playing in the background more or less and kind of coming through every now and then, is a live set from Ëlectrafa out of France. So this is his live set, version 2019.03, and I'll be sure to let you know when you're hearing that in the background to differentiate it from other things. Little bit of news. About a week ago in the New York Times, there was an article about teenage engineering, specifically about the pocket operators, which is pretty cool. The author of the article was Ryan Bradley. Interesting article. I actually enjoyed the read quite a bit. I thought that the comments, as with anything YouTube or any article you read on the internet, relatively polarized in a lot of ways, so we'll get to that. But the article featured a small interview with the artist Basic, who does some really cool electronic music based out of LA. And Basic was demoing a pocket operator for Ryan Bradley, just kind of showing him some of the sounds that it made, and Ryan Bradley was kind of marveling at the types of sounds and the amount of sound that were able to be produced by the pocket operator. A lot of us know that the pocket operators are more than mere toys. Even though they give the impression that they're a toy or a little calculator, they do some really cool stuff. At this point in the game, Teenage Engineering has sold about 350,000 pocket operators since they came out, which I think was 2015. One of the neat things about this is the public in general, people that aren't electronic music or TE nerds, are starting to find out about these things a little more and more. This article is going to help with that. So the author talks about how, more or less, the pocket operator is like a new kind of instrument. Well, I mean, we all know it totally is. It's something you can fit in your pocket, hang around your neck. I'm a little nerdy. I do that sometimes. I have the Pro case. with the strap when I have it around my neck, much to my wife's chagrin, but I kind of dig it. Kind of like a pocket operator Flavor Flav thing. The music you're hearing is from Sun Woo, and this is from Sun Woo's Art of Raw Volume 1 EP, which is available on Bandcamp. I definitely think you guys should check that out. It's really great. Made 100% with Pocket Operator 33, the Knockout, and Pocket Operator 35, Speak. Really, really cool stuff. We'll hear some more from Sun Woo a little bit later in the show. The article talks about pocket operators being simple devices. You know, they're based on really inexpensive parts. And one of the cool things about that is it makes them accessible to more people. More people can afford them, you know. I guess it depends on your perspective. If you figure, you know, anywhere from like 50 to 90 bucks for the pocket operators. I think that personally, for me, is relatively affordable compared to some of the other products on the market. I mean, don't get me wrong. Obviously, TE is not the only one making small synthesizer products out there, but they're just one of my favorites. But it's cool that more people will have a chance to get into electronic music and music making in general, especially kids. So Ryan Bradley in the article describes BASIC when he's using the PO, which I don't believe it mentioned which pocket operator BASIC was using, but it talks about him essentially getting lost in making the music in the moment, and really kind of selling how these things are not just little toys, they're actually instruments that you can use to make compelling music. So last I checked, I would say about midweek, this past week, there were 154 comments. The comments were split between naysayers and people that were applauding the pocket operators. You know, a lot of people really taking a philosophical stance. You know, what's music? What's a musical instrument? What's not? What takes talent? What doesn't take talent? These are conversations that, even though they give me like a pain in my head, I feel like I have to read these things and just kind of digest what people say to get their opinions. You know, the overwhelming opinion that a lot of people have that aren't familiar with electronic music, synthesizers, what have you, is that drum machines and synths have no soul. That's the argument that they always make, and that they don't take talent. Anybody can use them to make music. So for me, one of the takeaways that I have from that is, you know, I'm a saxophone player. Back in the day when Adolf Sax came up with the horn, the saxophone, as it were, if he would have had different technology, I have no doubt that most people that developed instruments or came up with instruments, if given the technology at that point in time, would have created these types of devices, and they would have taken the skill sets that they take to use them now. The situation was, with the way technology and culture was at the time, they made these things and they required a certain amount of skill or practice or what have you to play them. It is what it is. It was what it was. You had to pick up a horn, a piano, trumpet, saxophone, guitar. You had to put in the time to actually learn how to use these things. Now, it's the same way with electronic instruments, and we all know that. Anybody that makes electronic music knows about the amount of time it takes to make these things and the work. It's not that it doesn't take skill and talent. It absolutely does. But what these things do is they give you more of a chance to utilize them for creative purposes without having to go through, you know, maybe the years and years and years, although anybody could argue that, yeah, it takes years and years and years to get good at making electronic music. But one of the testaments to companies like TE is they're making products that people can use without having to be, you know, some sort of musical genius. You can just explore creativity, which really, in my opinion, is what music is all about, and what making music is all about, is being creative and sharing expression with others. So that's why I think the pocket operators are brilliant. I think there were a lot of people that echoed those sentiments in their comments in the comments section. If you guys get a chance, go check out that article, $60 Gadget That's Changing Electronic Music by Ryan Bradley, New York Times. You guys, I'm going to set up a post in the OP forums, and you can reach me there. What I'd like to do is, if you'd like to comment about this, because I think it is kind of a cool discussion. I know it is an age-old argument, what's music, what's not. I'd like to hear how you guys feel about it. So send me a direct message or even just a comment on the forum post. That might be the best way to get a hold of me. And what I'd like to do is, on the next episode, maybe read some of those comments, or a future episode, and we'll discuss. So here's a little more music in the background from Ëlectrafa from France. Really great stuff. Ëlectrafa has a Bandcamp, ëlectrafa.bandcamp.com. And this is I think this version was an hour and a half live set that he had composed and performed more or less in one take on the OPZ. I'm not sure if there's some extra processing. I think there might be a little bit of post-processing just to kind of polish it a little bit, but it's really brilliant stuff. You guys should check it out. So we'll definitely be hearing more Ëlectrafa throughout the show. Just a couple minutes ago, we heard from Sun Wu during our talk about the New York Times article. Sun Wu did an EP, The Art of Raw, which used the pocket operator sampler, the Knockout PO33, and the Speak PO35 to do his EP. But he's also done some stuff, some other pocket operators and some other TE instruments. I happened upon a composition that Sun Wu did, and he posted a YouTube video. It's called Miami 80s, which was a OPZ experiment. Sounds really cool. Thought I'd share it with you guys. Here's Sun Wu, Miami 80s. So again, that was Miami 80s you're hearing from Sun Wu out of Japan. It's an OPZ into a digital recorder. Doesn't look like there's any extra processing. Looks like it's straight up raw. Sun Wu used to go by Rising Sun, so you might be able to find him on the forums, maybe with some other posts on YouTube and what have you. But for now, he's going with Sun Wu, so definitely seek him out. Check out his Pocket Operator EP, and check out sunwu.bandcamp.com. I'll put his link information in the show notes so you guys can check out Sun Wu's music. check out another piece now called Canopy. This is from Missing Reels. I was blown away by this piece. This is an OP1 composition, and I really, really dig Missing Reels and the series on YouTube they have, Batteries, Beats, and the Great Outdoors. You should definitely check it out. It features a lot of really cool electronic music, and the backdrop is a lot of nature stuff, forest and such, so you'll hear some ambient sounds throughout. Here's another one done by Missing Reels. This one's on the Pocket Operator 32, that's the tonic. It's called Recorded at Hawkbridge. It was done all on the PO32, and he used some imported sounds using the Microtonic software by Sonic Charge. Check out Missing Reels YouTube series, Batteries, Beats, and the Great Outdoors. You guys will really dig it. I'm going to put all his link information in the show notes so you guys can find Missing Reels and definitely support. In the background now, you're hearing more from Ëlectrafa, from Ëlectrafa's live set, version 2019.03, which is available on Bandcamp. Really cool. It's a little over an hour and a half, really great music. Ëlectrafa out of France, ëlectrafa.bandcamp.com. Also has some YouTube stuff, and I'll put all his stuff in the show notes so you guys can find Ëlectrafa. Definitely support these artists that you're hearing. A lot of these folks, you know, they're doing day jobs, they're making music just like you and I, but it's really cool to kind of support other people in the music that they're making. Really, to me, is inspiring. The thought of having a community where people are making music and peers are supporting one another. I was thinking it might be a cool thing on the podcast to do a tips and tricks type section, maybe reoccurring monthly or something like that. We'll just kind of see what the frequency is. These are things that either I come up with, or if I'm allowed to share them, things from the forums, just general things that I'm able to find on the internet. If I use something from somebody else, I'll definitely give you credit, so no worries there. I want to make sure everybody gets the credit that they deserve. That's definitely part of it. But for now, one of the things that I was working on this week, I've been messing with the OPZ for a few weeks now, going through the manual, just trying to get a little bit of a deeper understanding of the OPZ and get a little closer to the confidence level I have using it like I did with the OP1. And one of the things that I came across in the manual was track copy. So I don't know if you guys have read or attempted to use the track copy, but it was a little bit confusing for me at first. I did actually notice a post on the OP forums and someone was asking about track copy and how it's not working and so on and so forth. So one of the things about track copy is, and I don't know if all you guys know this, I'm sure there's tons of you that already do, but for the ones that are struggling with what it actually does, my thought initially when I read it is that you were able somehow to copy a track and the sound from it from one to another. So let's say if you're using like the bass track on the OPZ and you have a bass sound that you like and you'd like to clone it and maybe copy it to the next track, like maybe the arpeggio track, and have then it not be an arpeggio track but just have it be like a clone of that bass track, that you're able to do that. Well, that's not actually what the track copy does. It has a little more to do with when you're setting up patterns from what I can tell. And again, like I mentioned before, if I'm missing the boat on any of this, guys, you can hit me up on the forums, send me a direct message, and I'll read your comments and we can talk about it. You can use the track copy when you're setting up multiple patterns and chaining patterns. You might notice that the OPZ, by default, typically each pattern you're using will have its own link to the sounds for each track. So for instance, if you're using pattern 1 and you have the first 4 tracks, they'll each have their own settings for that pattern, whereas when you go to pattern 2, they might have different settings. In other words, the tracks will be using different sounds. So what track copy does is if you're using a set of patterns linked together and you're actually doing, let's say, a chain of patterns 1, 2, 3, and 4, playing subsequently one after the next, track copy will let you actually copy the current track that you have going and copy those track settings onto the track settings for each of those additional patterns. Let's say I'm going to set up a 4 pattern chain. Let's say I chain patterns 1, 2, 3, and 4 together. So you set that up, hold down the pattern button on the top, you're going to hit play, and then you're going to hit patterns 1, 2, 3, and 4, so they're all selected. Now once you've done that, hit your track button and whatever track that you have selected. If you want to copy that setting to that same track for each of those subsequent patterns, you're going to hold down that pattern button up at the top. You're going to press shift 3 times and you're going to see the LEDs change. And on the 3rd time, you're going to see the little track LED on the track button actually light up. Now keep holding that pattern button, and then what you're going to do is you're going to select the first button, the second button, the third, and the 4th pattern buttons. And what that's going to do is on each of those, and you'll see the LEDs change, is it's going to copy that track setting into each of those tracks on those patterns. So now you'll have the same sound through. One of the things that I like to do is when I'm just experimenting, is I'll go through first before I do anything and set up a chain of, let's say, 4 patterns so that I have like a longer workspace to go with, because typically I like to record things on the fly rather than using just straight in adding notes to the step sequencer. So this is really cool because if you've ever tried before to do a pattern chain and then you start playing live with one of the tracks, you'll notice that the sounds are changing on you, which sometimes is really cool, but sometimes it's not what you want and it's frustrating. So if you use track copy and you set it up ahead of time like that, it'll give you the ability to go through, play live on one of those tracks, and for the entire chain of the patterns that you have, it will use all of those same sounds. And then you can come up with other creative operations to use track copy for putting together your arrangements and such. So track copy, hold down the pattern button on the top of the unit, hit shift 3 times until the little track LED lights up, and then while you're holding that pattern button, don't let it go, just select the patterns, including the one that you have active, and just select all of them, and it will have the active track that you were using copied to the settings on each of those. Pretty cool trick, so hope it works out for you. Let me know if it doesn't. I can try to help. Other people can maybe chime in, but that's one that to me maybe I'm just dense, but it seemed a little bit more complicated in the manual, so I'm kind of happy to have figured out how that works. So again, here in the background, and I've been featuring him for most of the show, this is Ëlectrafa with a live set that he did using the OPZ. This is his live set version 2019.03, and it's on his Bandcamp. You can actually download it. I definitely suggest that you do. It's got some amazing stuff, a lot of variety to the sounds that he uses. It's a really great set. You guys should check it out. And Ëlectrafa has a YouTube channel that you should follow, and I'm going to put that into the show notes, so definitely go out and check out more Ëlectrafa. Thanks, Ëlectrafa, for letting me use that live set. Really worked really great as a backdrop. I don't have to use my own stuff. Okay, so let's get into another track now that I think is really great. This is from an artist called Xtfr. Xtfr spells his handle Xtfr. Christopher Jansen. This is a piece called Camp Running Bear that he did that I think is particularly beautiful, and it's made more or less all with the OPZ. Really, really good stuff. Let's check it out. So again, that was Camp Running Bear from Xtfr, Xtfr. Xtfr has a SoundCloud. I wanted to plug that for him. I'm actually going to put the link to his SoundCloud in the notes for the podcast, so you can go through and definitely check out some of his other stuff. He's got a lot of compositions on there. Really, really cool stuff. Really, really good use of the OPZ, among other things. Check out Xtfr, Xtfr on SoundCloud. Now you're hearing a really beautiful ambient track from Echo Opera. Echo Opera's out of San Jose, California. This is a really, really gorgeous ambient OPZ piece. So Echo Opera used a little bit of extra processing to get some reverb on there. He used the KVR Audio Alm Reverb BST plugin. Sounds really, really good. So let's listen now. This is Echo Opera with Forever Floating. Again, here you've been listening to Echo Opera with Forever Floating. Echo Opera has a SoundCloud. I'll put that link in the show notes. You can also check out his work at echoopera.bandcamp.com. Definitely support. Really, really beautiful stuff. Some really good artwork too. So that's more or less going to wrap it up for this show, guys. Really was a pleasure to do this. I really look forward to doing a lot more, featuring a lot more music, figuring out the format, and it's going to be really fun. I hope you guys will support the show by listening. I really want to, as I've mentioned, get a good community going based around the podcast and something that augments the OP forums. Again, shout out to all the peeps that do the OP forums. Super amazing job that they do. It's so nice to have that there. And I hope that this can just kind of add to the overall teenage engineering fan base community, user community. Thanks again to listening to Small Operations, episode number 2. I'm Field Plan. You could find me at FLDPLN.com. I also have set up a Small Operations Twitter and Instagram account. Just look for Small Operations, at Small Operations on both of those. Send me some comments. Give me some direct messages on the forums or on Twitter, Instagram. Let me know if you got some music that you'd like me to share. I'd love to do it. Always looking for good stuff. That's going to be really what this podcast is about. So just let me know how you feel about it, and let's keep rolling. Until next time, take care, small ops.